Hi, this is Shira Adler. Welcome to the Synergy Show and specifically to the new Alchemy video series. Sit tight, buckle up. This is a ride that you will never have anticipated, and I welcome you and honor the opportunity that I have to introduce you to New Alchemy and its founder, architect, Quantum Celebrant, Mari Tierney. Thanks for watching. Hi, I'm Shira Adler and welcome to the Synergy Show. And this is a very special edition of Synergy Show. Why? Because it's kicking off the first ever interview for the New Alchemy series. And I'm so honored and delighted to introduce a very dear friend of mine, my ride or die. Oh, how to describe this woman? Honestly, I really can't. I'm going to let her give a little bit of her background, but we are going to talk about something she created called New Alchemy, and that is a very, very important conversation for these times, and you will soon learn why. So we will cover the why now, why this, and why this woman. Introducing Mari.
Thank you, Shira. Of course, the feeling is absolutely mutual. It's a major love fest when it came to meeting you. Thank you so much. So excited to do this with you and for the invite. So yeah, let's talk about New Alchemy. I'm excited to bring it out. There's some things happening in the world, some part of the family that we're hoping that this can really be helpful to and support while they're in a very powerful journey here in global dynamics. So hopefully, well, of course,
talk about some of those global dynamics, honestly, because at the time that we are making this recording, it's the beginning of August 2023. And for those who have, I want to jokingly say, not been living under a rock, actually, we're all living in exactly the alignment that we need to live, which means some of the information we may be mentioning, talking about might be unfamiliar. There might be terminology that you haven't heard, things like QFS or discussing currency or a fiat system or global economics or humanitarian missions, things that may or may not be resonant or relevant to you, well, so you think, the you watching this at this time. But in fact, the topics that we're going to talk about and what New Alchemy is rather essential, and it really kind of merges and crosses all bridges and all dynamics and all people. So we're going to just be very specific as to why we're talking about it now and how it's relevant to this moment in time. But in fact, even if you're unfamiliar, please listen into this conversation, because when something is deeply in that what feels yes place, if there's a part of you that landed on this video, there's a reason for it. Trust that. Just sit with it. Feel into it, because ultimately one of the core concepts that you'll be discussing in the New Alchemy system, which is really a quantum mechanics system that everybody can use to apply to their daily lives and experiences. First of all, how did you even come up with this New Alchemy system? People know about law of attraction, they might be familiar with Abraham, but this is something that really works with that. Can you explain that a little bit more for people?
Yeah, the becoming of New Alchemy is primarily around two major events in my life. One was 25 years ago, where I was given an incurable diagnosis with 6 months to live and experienced a spontaneous healing event. And the interesting thing in that particular way that I experienced it, the only thing that changed was my internal paradigms. Certainly, certain true and real beliefs were totally challenged and just literally couldn't exist where they were before. So I came across the information in a really spectacular way, delivered to my door actually, and it's a great time of asking. And as I listened to it, the early intro is quite dense for me. It felt like somebody was speaking my language, and just literally as I listened to it, I was recognizing it as something that I could almost remember most of my life. And I was desperately looking for answers, because nothing I was doing was working, and I was really wanting to stay alive. And as I listened, and there was in my opinion, a senior perspective to understand myself and all of my life to date, things just kept coming up and coming up where they just couldn't stand in the light of this new information. And certainly it was what I was asking for at the time. And so before I played that tape, I was in one vibrational mix. I was in one energetic dynamic. that's, where I was living from. That's my position, if you will, energetically. And after the 15 minutes or whatever that tape was, I ended up like pacing around the couch, and then actually ended up jumping up and down on that couch. I mean, tears of joy streaming, and I just felt like my whole body was going to burst. And when it finished, I knew everything was different. It would be another 10 years, of playing and discovering to really articulate it well. It was certainly a spontaneous healing event with and where I was and what could exist as true and real in my energy after that tape. It was just different, and I was in a different location. So where I was vibrationally aligned and resonant with an early death before I listened, afterwards I was aligned for longevity. That's what, over 25 years ago. So kind of broken all the paradigms on that particular diagnosis. So
you were given 6 months and you lived and decided to shift it, and that was 25 years ago. I mean, I really want that to land. And the only thing that changed was what you did internally, that belief system. And we all have a lot of belief bridges about the tools, the way of holistically living, metaphysically, spiritually, physically, biochemically. We all have things to which we believe that we need to adhere ourselves or rely on. You relied on this trusting, this knowing of this information as a download that came to you, and it shifted you into a state of, oh, I am longevity. And that's a powerful clarity that you arrived at.
Yeah, it's in the book. There's more details because it's so evident. I can share one a prime belief I was in, a prime agreement really, because there wasn't anyone imposing it on me. It's throughout my life, and especially my early years, if I dreamed something 3 times, it would happen. And so as I experienced that, of course, and I paid attention to it, then I was aligned to experience it more. So when I had a dream in my early teens, three nights in a row, that I would die in my early 30s. By that time, it was just inevitable. In the agreements that I had gotten into, all by myself, really, right? That event was unquestionable. And then I had my daughters, and then was quickly trying to change it. Somehow change the outcome. Of course, wasn't sure. It wasn't really understanding, what was contributing to it. In the first surgery, they said, we can't promise it didn't go internal. It's just undetectable. So then a secondary site showed up, and then that's when I was given the news. And this particular, it was by then now internal melanoma. In some ways, it was the perfect diagnosis to have because chemo and radiation weren't even options. Doesn't touch internal. So those weren't paths, that I got busy exploring. I did, for a short bit, do a trial at the melanoma center in my area. And that's where the idea and understanding of what a spontaneous healing was meant, because the only thing that they had at that time recorded was that occasionally there was the immune system would just go into superactivity and there would be a spontaneous healing. So I quickly knew that wasn't my path because of certain things that they said, and beliefs they had. It was just categorically incorrect. I didn't know what was correct. I just knew that wasn't some of the things that they were communicating. But I did get the idea of spontaneous healing. And so when this happened, I was able to recognize it. And then, of course, later on, I also came across the book, and that helped me give more understandings, by Raymond Will. So it was like that belief alone was contributing to my alignment to that experience. When it got challenged in the fundamental understandings of law of attraction, and that we have free will, that we create our realities, it wasn't happening to me, it was happening through me. The agreement just couldn't hold water as tightly as it did before, and it gave room for a new outcome.
Especially in these days, I think a lot of people are feeling very helpless, very disempowered, to a lot of uns. What is happening is unimaginable. It is it's it's non. There's a negating of that which we like to feel we are in charge of in terms of creating positive energy. And we've almost created this level of duality of, well, I know I'm a sovereign being. And we hear a lot of words about sovereignty and taking back our sovereignty. And yet it's those various groups sometimes that are demonstrating the very embodiment of giving away one's power to, whether it's a higher force or it's what works against the higher force. So just for a moment, I think it's pretty interesting that this new alchemy quantum mechanics system, this foundational tool or skill set, if you will, that you've created and developed for 13 years from the time you realized them and to where we are, it's pretty interesting to notice that we are challenging the very fundamentals of what we all should maybe innately connect with, in terms of we are the creators of our worlds. We do have free will. We understand law of attraction. We understand spiritual law. We understand concepts of divine, source, God. Yet, where did we create this thing called alignment, or perhaps speak to what the vibrational mix you've mentioned before? What is a vibrational mix, and how is it creating this alignment that's pulling us into an experience of something that is unwanted or less than preferred? Because I really think that that's kind of the crux of what you've done with this system. So
Yeah.
you've developed a beautiful system called NU AlchIME, which is basically a quantum mechanics system for helping people understand and better integrate law of attraction. If I'm going to keep it, super simple for people to kind of grasp. And even if people don't believe in that yet, they've probably heard of this law of attraction thing, and you have this tool set now that's available for people to be able to better understand themselves and their relationship and their roles, their responsibility, meaning the ability to have a response to the world that we're in. And yet, maybe you can explain how it is that if we use these tools, we can work on our own vibrational mix. We can create this alignment, because what happens, as you said, isn't what happens to us. It's what happens through us and for us, which I've always said as well. So I love this. But how are we creating this alignment? And how does NU AlchIME help us to really understand how we're creating our alignment?
Sure. You mentioned that some people may not know the phrase law of attraction. I think the idea has been taught and communicated in almost every body of knowledge, any kind of spiritual philosophy, etc. One that's probably the most actively known today is the idea of ask and it's given. Okay, if we really look at that idea, certainly there's other things in the body of work that I was raised in. That as a man thinketh, so is he. I would offer today to actually also hear that as one thinketh, so is his experience, or the human experience. Okay, because if we really actually be present with what's being said there, then it illuminates intrinsically that we have a role. And I think where it's been a really confusing and what's created so much kind of entanglement and conflicting dynamics in our current time space, in this experience of the human family, is there's a lot of dichotomy in so many schools of thought. Okay, and I think it's a time that we're being invited to realize that we're not only an extension of the divine, that we're source beings, that we're infinite beings of love and light in the temporary and phantom experience of otherwise in the experience of human, etc. And that we have a much more powerful role in the unfolding experience of source, divine, than we have believed for a long time. So let's start there. That let's just suppose that we actually do create our reality, that what we think contributes to how we experience. Of course, I feel that ask and it's given probably is better understood today as focus and it's given, because that would help give scope to why we tend to create mixes, and why sometimes we generate experiences that we are not consciously trying to do, that we really want to create something other than that, and how that's happening. So I think the additional phrase to ask and it's given, because asking comes in many forms. It comes in prayer, it comes in focus, it comes in feeling. All of those are various forms of asking at a frequency and vibrational level, and everything in the universe is frequency and vibration at its most causal dynamic, its most causal construct. Of course, it's a multidimensional game as well. And so we have these different tiers of constructs or dimensionality. So let's just, for now, suppose that we do, and that we are incredibly sovereign beings, that we wield from our unique once in infinity perspective the energy that creates worlds. We instruct it through our experience, consciously or other, and that we can learn tools and we can learn skills to get a more concise, precise, and desired result. And certainly that philosophy has been opening. Abraham was certainly opening it in a modern language, in my opinion. 25 years ago, their conversation has developed. Of course, there's many, many more that I've become aware of since then. That kind of listening to a channel or something, that was like taboo the way I was raised. So those kind of conversations were unavailable to me until I just didn't care anymore. I just needed answers. Kind of emptied on that day.
What's so funny is that a lot of us were taught, because we come from different religious backgrounds, and we're not supposed to listen to channels or these other people speaking on behalf of us. The funny thing is, there's just more of a true and unabashed sort of, hey, this is my innate intelligence. This is my innate soul speaking with a conversation with the divine, God, source, infinite, whatever you want to call it, however you reference it. The funny thing is, people are just doing it differently. But those very people that might have otherwise poo-pooed and said, oh, you're not supposed to listen to a channel or law of attraction, who is this Abraham or Cryon or any of these other entities of light and love, aren't we all really having the same conversations? Just some of us have it more quietly within our being, and that little teeny kernel of ultimate knowing, connectivity, truth, light. We all have that. And when I was a little kid, it was like the little angel devil on our shoulders. We have so many descriptions for how we receive this information. So at the end of the day, you've just created a simple, this is the why this. It's a simple toolkit to apply to whomever you are and however you identify that innate knowing, that information, that co-creative ability with source and the divine. And I love it in its simplicity, because that is what it's about. It's distilling the crazy, joyful chaos we call life and what the planet is at this time, and saying, okay, we're all in these experiences. Some of them we feel are yummy, and some of them we feel are a little yucky. And let's just take out the judgment and understand there's duality and wholeness. So there really is not about whether it's good or bad, or cabal and deep state, or light workers and white hats. It doesn't matter what words we use. We're just talking about a balance of information that's available on the full spectrum, from really, really yummy, desired, I want clarity on this, and the really, really, really yucky, the things that are very hard for us to fathom and understand. And if we lighten up the language on it, how do we get to the place where what we really prefer, what we really yearn for and desire, and this whole law of attraction thing, how do we use New Alchemy to access the yes, please, more of that, and diminish or decrease the energy of the less than preferred? Because I think sometimes in our earnestness and desire to create more of the good, we're actually focusing on more of what it is we don't want. So it seems like even in the groups that are really here to elevate, bring in light, raise the vibration, we're still somehow creating more of the very thing we're trying to take our focus from. And New Alchemy sort of talks about that, addresses that. So can you give us a little bit of highlight about how that works?
Well, let's just put a few thoughts out there. So first of all, when one brings in more light, more light, it illuminates everything. Okay, it's going to illuminate and even bring into light our full spectrum, and let's open to the idea that part of the constriction that this collective currently, and for a while has been experiencing, part of how we're doing it to ourselves, actually, because the more we understand about how the quantum physics works, how our relationship with the quantum field works, and how it's part of the divine, we're going to understand that we are the they. Otherwise, our experience of any they is going to be have reflective information for us. and that unconditional love and free will and infinite, well, I would say infinite possibility, unconditional love and support, okay, and law of attraction are that fundamental trifecta of free will, okay? And so free will is free will. It says, Abraham has a great quote. It says, "You're so free you can create bondage." And when we have really limited and entangling core concepts and precepts that we're in agreement, like, so let's start with duality, that it's an either or duality.
Yeah.
Then that creates a lot of constriction, you know, that we start to really, really create a divide, an extreme divide too, with a very fine, you know, middle line, if you will. Yeah. So, you know, alchemy, one of the many things, you know, well, I say many, I think it's still a small level of subjects and simple tools, because that's what I asked for, because that's what I need. But one is to understand that it's a spectrum. It's an and, everything is a spectrum. Okay, the idea that there's one or the other, the idea that there could even be a source of darkness. Well, there's a lot of conflicting information even in the current bodies of knowledge. Okay, because everything is light, everything is God, everything is, let's call it light for now. Okay, so I also agree with Abraham, because they talk about there is no source of darkness. Darkness is a state of light. Okay.
It's an important statement.
Yeah, because there's only light. And then you have the spectrum of the experience of light. And we can even have the experience of without light. It's an experience of light. And we start to open up to the idea of and duality, dark and light, increase and decrease, understanding the cycle of creation has a natural effect of destruction. And when creation is wielded in the yes, from the joy, from the heart connectedness, that cycle will complete in a more velvet way, if you will, more of a velvet revolution.
I love that. I love textiles. So because I'm a big hemp textile, you know, future. That's a big part of my world, hemp agritech. Yes, hemp textiles, velvet, things that feel like velvet. You said something interesting, and I want to give an example so people really get the beauty and simplicity. Because what we're talking about may sound really big, and yet think about that. What you just said about the creation and destruction, that perfect balance and cycle of that even in creation there's destruction. I love the example that you gave once about the cup of coffee. So share that, because it really just, in terms of paints a simple picture for people to understand what you meant by that and the significance of that.
Sure. And listen, I was a fighter. I'll just say that from the start. In my early years, I was a fighter. I had to change everything. It was just not all okay. And I fought against a lot. Certainly that contributed to my experience of that diagnosis at the time. Since then, I've used my favorite tool to know and unknow, to know anew, okay? Unknow, to put my knowing in a universal neutral or just a unified now state of isness. Let it be still. I know what I know, and be willing to unknow it all, to know more anew. So in that process, this creation, understanding that creation was a cycle and destruction was part of it, versus a separate thing in that either or idea. And this really came together at one point when I came across the idea that, you know, for anything you create, the opposite is created, if you will. I feel like that's been really misdefined, misunderstood. Okay. I would say, I would at least like to offer that anytime we create an increase, there is a natural effect of decrease. And there's a couple of simple ways to say it. So first of all, if I have 2 pens, okay, or 3 pens or 5 pens, right, I'm going to get it down probably to one decision, at least one at a time.
Yes.
Okay. And I have no need to make it bad. Otherwise, that kind of, you know, okay, now either this one or that one, it's for a temporary precision decision, belongs not in the idea of duality. That as I pick this pen, I am actually creating a decrease or experience of this one, but ultimately, whenever I make a decision, I'm creating all sorts of decrease. I'm temporarily going to be in the lack of making a coffee or going to the swimming pool or whatever if I've decided to write with this pen. And of course, it's changeable and it's overflowing. So understanding
Literally
that.
like data, it's X's and O's and simple, ones and zeros, just in different combinations. And that's really what make the vibrational mix. And that example about the creation and destruction, you've got a perfect cup of black coffee and it's perfect, it's whole, it is what it is, there's the isness of it. And as soon as you add that sweet cream that you prefer, and I prefer maybe some honey, a little cinnamon, or my stevia, or the cream, whatever it is, I've now created through destruction a new creation.
Anytime we have a reality and we would like something more or better or different, whatever it is, we're going to experience the chaos of change. It might take 2 seconds. It might take however long it takes, you see, because there's going to be a decrease in the current experience and an increase of what we're wanting to experience. Now, how long it takes in between that? Well, that has a lot to do with our own alignment, with our own rules and laws. And ultimately, that's what New Alchemy is about, is understanding the quantum mechanics of thought form, okay, of belief, of judgment, of questions, of laws, etc. And so that's my favorite analogy for demonstrating that velvet evolution of an experience is the coffee, because I'm going to use, as I add that cream and we add that sweetener, whatever it is, I'm going to pollute that coffee. Let's just play with some of those, what we've said, there's either positive or negative words. No, they're all they are what they are, and they do what they do, and they can be experienced in the full spectrum of yummy to yucky, which is a spectrum. Okay. When we've gone into this agreement of either or, we've created such a divide, okay, in ourselves unwittingly, and we've put a lot of the tools of high-powered manifestation as taboo, okay, because we believe that they're only negative, so they're taboo to use, okay, and then we've made part of ourselves that has to be denied. Okay, so let's just
put ourselves in alignment with that which we created taboo. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. Knowing what we don't want, knowing how we feel, wherever it is, minus the judgment, at least harsh judgment, being learning that develops to how to self-reveal, which ultimately I would say New Alchemy it certainly is a self-metamorphic system, okay, and it's the tools themselves are to help build the ability of how to bring something to light in a very comfortable and safe and quick way, and then how to harvest the clarity, anything that's wanted to be changed, how to be with it, how to harvest the clarity of preference, and how to give that preference concise form, and then how to make it active and embodied and go into play, how to transmute alchemy, how to transmute our vibrational mix. So very simply said, if you want something different, do something different, be something different.
Be something different.
Okay.
Yeah.
And these are tools on how to do that. In my early years, and certainly as I was looking for solutions for that diagnosis, I would hear, go inward. And I was like, okay, how? Be the love.
That's
gotta love yourself. Great, I'm in. Let's do it.
Yeah.
How?
Let's think about the fact that, from the biblical perspective, we hear things like the kingdom of heaven is within. We've all, again, there are different phrases for saying the same thing according to your background and belief and educational and spiritual systems that we are so used to living within, the structures that we feel comfortable within. So this system, the New Alchemy system, applies to everybody and everyone in every system, because you just find the language and you understand that words mean more than we think they do. And it's just another way of transmuting your current existing systems to really the wide expanse of what they really truly are. Because we have now, as you said, you spoke of divisiveness, we have really pigeonholed ourselves in terms of humanity, in terms of globally, societally, politically. I never thought we'd be in this time, and yet I'm so grateful we are in this incredibly challenging time, because it's such an opportunity through the destruction to create, again, on the spectrum, the creation of that which we want.
In some ways, what we're going through, literally makes evident law of attraction, if you will, or ask and it's given.
Yes.
For how many centuries have certain kinds of prophecies and things been given energy, been focused on, and then in the mechanic of asking that around this time there would be this great event, and then there would be 1,000 years of peace or the golden age of mankind. And the thing was that I think, unfortunately for now, okay, because we're changing, it's changing, that we could have given that kind of change, that chaos of change, different pictures, okay? Because like anything, the chaos of change can be experienced in that full spectrum. Otherwise, everything can be experienced in that full spectrum. That's free will. Okay, if it could only be experienced in one way, that really can't stand up in the light of free will. And the light of free will is one of my favorite little touchstones on if something I'm thinking or feeling feels other than that yes, that my body, my head starts to nod, or my face starts to smile, I get that physical edification of it, then can it stand in the light of free will?
Another way of asking that, because I really love that, if your gut, if your innate intelligence, your soul, however you identify that, if your being does not light up with a spark, an immediate visible response of joy and lightness, and that, yes, that's yummy, that, oh, the possibilities, right? If that spark isn't there, okay, then you're on another part of the spectrum, and no judgment, but you are probably there. So the opportunity is to say, well, let's ask it differently then, what would love do? Because free will is a concept that's hard for people to sometimes grok or understand intuitively, which is what grok means empathetically, or as an empath would. It's to say, well, I have free will, but what's happening over there to those people or to those children, right? We all really struggle with the concepts of children hurting, and this is all for the children and save the children of the world, and yet we're focusing on that which we want to save them from. And then we think, well, they would never volunteer for all of this. And so that question of free will comes into conversation a lot. So another way of asking it when we're looking at something on a global perspective is, what would love do, or what would Jesus do if you're in that faith tradition? There are different ways of asking the question, but in the asking, we will receive responses. New Alchemy helps to identify the questions, help to formulate them more specifically, and help to use language and emotions like fear and anger, especially anger. It's a really strong create as a mechanic. It really creates a lot. So how can we use New Alchemy with one of those heavier create mechanics?
I would add that, asking what love would do is one of my favorites, because it will take me, even if I'm a little bit triggered or whatever, feeling a little bit pulled out, it will zero me into my highest connection and highest perception. And it's also helpful, just depending, to ask, how does love feel about this, and what's love's perception about this? Okay, or Christ's perception, the divine's perception, what resonates with someone on that. That's my other favorite touchstone, and sometimes the easiest one for people to go to is, how does love feel about this? And so thank you for bringing that up, because it's an opportunity to give that spectrum of questions. As far as, we are in times where there's a lot of things coming to light, and probably the idea that we create our reality is, for many, considering everything that's come to light, it can feel like a really hard pill to swallow.
Yes.
And this is what I would love to say. In my journey, I decided to go, 10 years later, I was bringing out global projects, and I experienced a complete inexplicable collapse. Like it just wasn't even in the realm of possibility or logic that it could happen that fast, and yet somehow it did. And I came away going, who watered my weeds? Where the heck did this? I understood I had alignment for it. And really, I want to make a real clear delineation before I go further on this. There is a big difference between what we experience and who we truly are. And knowing that difference in ourselves and each other, this is a big call to action right now, because just even being willing to know the difference when we look on another family member in humanity, first of all, is going to help us stay healthy.
Right, just feeling it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Second of all, as we're willing to understand that there's a difference between what we're experiencing, and we need this grace as well for ourselves, what we're experiencing and who we truly are. Okay?
Yes.
Because currently in our what we believe is true and real, the agreements we've gone into as a collective, we're watching the reflective dance in our global mirror, if otherwise, how we experience reality. This is part of our backup system as we learn to be creators, is that however we're experiencing it, and we've played with that, it has subjective information, it has reflective information for what's going on inside. You want to know what's going on, you go look in a mirror. Well, it's learning how to use the reality that we're living individually and even the collective and global as that informative source that it really is meant to be as part of our backup system and guidance system. So right now we are in a high metamorphic state, I would where we are going from one phase, that everyone on the planet has the ability to at least live a 2-phase life design, much like the butterfly.
As you started to say that, it popped into my head as it's literally each of us going from the caterpillar, completely restructuring our bodies, our experiences, everything that we want and dream and envision. We're going back into that imaginal cell, which has a new set of instructions, and then it forms that new vibrational mix, that new alignment, that new essence of that which we always have been. That butterfly was in the form of the caterpillar, but it took the restructuring down through that cell, that new set of instructions on go form yourself anew, learn yourself anew, and then we're free to fly as a butterfly.
Yeah, the more in-depth work, the more the program, the metamorphic program in NU AlchIME is a 3 quantum jump process, and it's all around that understanding. And the understanding of an imaginal cell is new, as I'm finding out that as a 2-phase life design, as you're saying, when it comes time to go into that chaos of change, the chrysalis is formed. And all the cells of the caterpillar's body, they were organized in a certain way with certain agreements, and it gave them a certain speed and perception to explore from. And then taking that into the chrysalis, all the programming of all the cells of the caterpillar are cleared. It's like primordial goo, if you will, for my way of saying it, except for the imaginal cell. The imaginal cell holds the program. And once there is enough release of the old agreements, the imaginal cell begins to transmit the new program, and all the cells that were in the agreement of caterpillar now go into the form and agreement and manifestation of butterfly. And it's important in that process that we observe this process, because it's, again, informative for us. We have to let go of the old program. And right now, I think what we're experiencing so much is, and very understandable, and boy, have I wrestled with this over the years. That's why it took me so long to come out. Is, but this reality, let's just say, the caterpillar reality, it's true and it's real. Well, there's lots of things true and real, and it's being truly and really experienced. But the actuality, of course, of even this butterfly caterpillar, is that it is source energy, it is life form, it is spirit in a design, okay? And it's changeable. Like, that's what it can inspire to us. And as we go through this chaos of change, learning any clues we can on how to release that old programming, how to harvest, how to exact in a concise and precise way, and be able to articulate it clearly and robustly what we do want. It's in that chrysalis time, that chaos of change time that we're in, where it's more important than ever to really, really actually emerge into something new in the experience of humanity. Is we must turn the other cheek, if you will. We must, as counterintuitive as it can feel, turn our focus and invest wisely. Okay, whatever we focus on, we're investing in. And
that's what turn the other cheek really means. Again, when we look at it, I spend an inordinate amount of time writing spiritual treaties. My background is Jewish clergy and non-denominational interfaith minister. I'm always saying that's not what the Bible really says. That's what the Bible, that's how we have scripted language. That's what the whole phrase of I am the way, what he really said was I am is the way. In the very beginning of the Bible, it's not in the beginning, it's in a beginning. I mean, if we really just rescript and retranslate that, then even that phrase, turn the other cheek, doesn't necessarily mean what we think it means. Rather, it means more than what we think it means. It means turn your focus. When you pray in Hebrew and you have kavanah, they say it means intention, that you focus on the prayer text, on what you're saying. It doesn't actually mean intention. It literally means to aim one's heart. So there's a lot we can do with using this basic new alchemy tool set, with looking at what words and more expansive language behind everything we say, where we put our focus, take the best of all that we already have and know and are, and understand we're at a compression point for humanity. And it's the rebirthing through this compression point. This is really where we are. What are we currently seeing? Let's look at the currency of our currency, even physically. The fiat system, the old system is going out, the new systems, the gold backed, the acid backed, there's no mistake to any of the beauty and the grandeur and the significance and the importance and impact of all of the systems, all the paradigms crashing down and being, quote, destroyed. They have to be to rebirth. And we've created a simple system we're going to cover in these videos. We're going to do really basic, great skills that people can utilize, simple things to take on through the beauty and hugeness and vastness of each of us and who we truly are. With a simple skill set, we can get through this process with more beauty and grace and joy than maybe we've currently been experiencing.
Yeah, I think the great invitation of this conversation and the new alchemy tools is to understand that destruction is a natural consequence of creation. And when we create from our yes, when we create from our alignment and our heart, that transition, that metamorphic process, that discombobulation and recombobulation of our experience, it happens in harmony with the energy that we're creating through. It's understandable why we've gotten into the agreement that in order to create something new, we have to go destroy something first. And I think that's one of our big ways we're tricking ourselves, because as we fight against, there's a difference. And I think we're invited. And in one of these series, I would love to communicate the luminous models of life. I spent a great 2 years working with a soul architect in giving form to what does the human life look like? What do the relationship models and the business models and all of these things, what do they look like when the majority of the collective lives from the understanding that they create their reality, and that whatever they're experiencing, there's something going on in here that's giving them alignment to experience and how to play with it. So we're getting there. And I have some fun things on that. For now, we can draw this process out a lot by fighting against. There's certainly ones in the family of humanity that kind of came in with alignment to work in harmony with that transition. Okay. Mm-hmm. The best thing we can just do is support that. By the way, well, we'll come back to that. Help that transition is the ones who are longing for something, and they're aligned to be of service, to help heal, if you will, otherwise to be on the leading edge of defining and creating models of what's next for humanity. That's their role. And the best thing that they could do to support any other roles in the body of humanity that are congruent with that deconstruct part of it is that they can hold a clear, vibrational, concise clarity of where the ship is going.
That's what the QFS is, in a way. That's what all of the new systems, the future technologies for healing, the humanitarians that I know that all have projects ready to go. Yeah. We are those that chose to come in now and say, sign me up for the most chaotic time, and to be a part of birthing that which we wish to create and bring into this world for this time that was predestined, that was always infinite possibilities. As we talk about, if there are 8 billion people on the planet, there are 8 billion versions of reality.
We're in that predestined dynamic. Otherwise, we have a soul intention. This was one of the answers that came to me with these tools. And it had a lot to do with me wanting to understand how could a baby or a child have alignment for anything, really. Okay. Ultimately, that was the question. Certainly, it was spawned by witnessing that there was things I just couldn't imagine any infinite, any pure, precious being having alignment for. Ultimately, the question I asked in these tools was, how do we have alignment for anything in those early years? And it does involve us. Okay, we're part of that at soul level in our intention. There's a great video out there I adore. It's a cute little YouTube video. It's called The Volunteers, and it just does a great job of communicating some of that which I saw when all this came in, and it will help understand the difference between victim, victimizer, and volunteers, etc. For now, let's simply say we have a cooperative role. We are children of the divine. We have the incredible birthright and inheritance, if you will, to be able to choose and wield free will. And the energy that creates world supports us in it. And we're learning how to do this. This is one of the most documented times I could imagine. We're understanding that whatever I focus on, I'm pulling the quantum voting lever. Okay.
The quantum voting lever. I love that. Yes. Yes.
Whatever I focus on, I'm investing, I'm depositing and creating a demand that needs to be supplied. So if I'm focused on my grumbling neighbor, I'm without realizing it, but this is the time for us to realize it. Heretofore, unwittingly, I'm literally summoning more of grumpy neighbor. Okay. And that applies on all subjects, as tender as that might feel sometimes. And I had the opportunity to work with some really tender subjects in my journey. What I would say is I've yet to find any evidence of anything other than we create our realities, that we are extensions of source, and that we are infinitely more than we can imagine right now. And this is a very excited time about beginning to remember that and open up, not just restore the field of play of the human design itself, but expand it. And that's some of the beauty of the compression that, again, the information that I was given, we put ourselves into. So
absolutely.
It's a fundamental understanding. And the beautiful thing about free will and infinite possibility is that we can even experience that as untrue. Doesn't mean it's not. We can have the temporary and venom experience of that not being true. And I'm really wanting to say something specific, Shira. There are times when I've experienced with clients and myself on certain experiences that I had that it was important for me to bring into the light of this kind of level of understanding and look at it. And occasionally there can be a way of creators' regret and remorse. Okay. And I think the fear of that, known or unknown, seen or unseen, is part of what's dragging this out right now. Okay. And here's what I would love to share anyone that resonates with. It's okay to get through it. Stay, breathe through it, keep allowing it to unfold and find the awarenesses. Because on the other side of it, we have a different level of ability to go. I see where I was aligned for this, and I see where I was aligned for this and this, through the whole spectrum of that which we're playfully calling yummy the yucky. And the actuality of it has a chance to become wholly realized, and that's a game changer. That's a game changer in your inner currency, hey, whatever the vibrational mix and beliefs and investments of focus and all of that. Those are our currencies. That's our current vibrational state that is generating our reality. Thank goodness we have a time-space buffer on that, and there's modulation of how powerfully that spectrum is creating. Thank goodness. The other side is a level of freedom, and to use popular phrases right now because they're very applicable. An organic inner current, inner currency. Currencies are stories, our beliefs, our laws, our revaluation, renegotiation, redemption, restoral, resurrection, reset. Like we just literally, when we can see it, am I going, actually, I see I had alignment for it all. Doesn't mean I wanted it all. I just had alignment for it. Doesn't mean I deserved it. And I'm using the doesn't on purpose, okay? Because it means that I really do create my reality. I really am an incredibly amazing extension of source. And I have a unique role in all that is. I love what Bashar says, all that is cannot be all that is without you. Because you are an unfoldment of all that is. And who we are, who each of us are, is vital. We hold a once in infinity perspective, and only we can explore it. We have stewardship of a once infinity unfolding experience of the divine source of light. And each of us have stewardship of where this experience goes. And where we take it is our legacy. And how we live it each day is actually the legacy that we leave. It's not something that we think we leave behind, a manifestation that we leave behind. The all-dimensional legacy is how we live each day. We're learning more tools. There's more and more conversations come out. New Alchemy has this role. They're tools for cause. They're tools at cause. Okay, they work with any. Right? Is that helpful? Did that get where you were hoping to get?
Absolutely, because this was really so people have an opportunity to meet you, to hear, to start this conversation. The entire video series is going to cover a lot of the specific tools ahead of when the book comes out, ahead of all the plans that we have, because it's time now. We're in it.
Yes.
And so
there's definitely a time where anything that anyone's willing to do, again, we need to do something different. So I am with great gratitude and joy bringing at least one thing, something I have to offer to that, doing it differently. I hope it's helpful. I hope it supports the expedition and the finalization of this chrysalis period that we've been in for a few years and in some ways longer. So I thank you so much for coming into my life and helping to bring this out and what you add. Yes, thank you. Yes. Danny is my partner in Project Vision. That came as a vision. Project actually arrived as how can I support this chrysalis time, to move quickly? How can I support the movement through the chaos of change in an expedited manner and for a truly new result? That's how Project Vision actually came, in a vision, to that question.
And we'll have all that information available in the description below, et cetera. It's projectvision.world. And I knew that even though years ago I didn't know, and I felt like using it as we spoke, I'm going to use my sprays right now, like the synergy sprays, the aromatherapy, that's that system. And of course, sometimes we have visions for things, create things well in advance of fully understanding the why and for whom and in what capacity. I think we're pretty clear now. So I invite everyone to stay connected to you, to us, to this channel, to these conversations. We are going to get very busy very quickly. And it's, again, my greatest honor and joy to be a part of your world, your life. Thank you to Danny for introducing us. Thank you to everyone who felt the yes, followed the yes to watch this video. More coming very soon. Thank you.
Thank you.